Hello, welcome to the Viewpoint. I am Umudumboj. My guest today is a multiple award-winning author. In fact, in a recent book launch of his latest book, he also received an award of excellence for African literature, awarded by the International Association of African Authors and Scholars. I'm privileged to have him here in the studio. This is Modu Lamin H. Al-Musaf Sow. Welcome to the Viewpoint.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mboj. I am much obliged and all gratitude you can consider yourself heartily thanked. And thank you for the invitation.
You are welcome. A rather unusual name, I must say. The Modu Lamin Sow bit I understand perfectly well. But Modu Lamin H. Al-Musaf Sow. Is there something to the name?
Yes, this is a very unique name. In fact, I think I'm the only H. Al-Musaf throughout the whole world. It was not a coincidence because back in high school, we had Modu Sow, Momodu Sow, and Modlamin Sow in the same class. So I needed to coin a pen name for myself. So I adopted the H. Al-Musaf. The H is my father, Alhaji Gorgi Ibrahima. That's the meaning of the H. The Al-Musaf is my mother. So I came to be well known.
Your mother was known, your mother's name was Al-Musaf?
No, my mother's name is Lalla.
Lalla.
Yes,
Okay.
but I decided to coin that name, to make sure that I am being identified with it when it comes to writing. So it is my pseudonym, my pen name.
That's your pen name. Interesting. So give us a bit of your biography. Where were you born? Early high school or primary school, high school, and the like?
Thank you very much. I was born in Bakau, Newtown. We moved from Bakau to Brikama when I was just 5 because my father worked in the previous regime of, I think, Sadada Karaba Jawara. And after the 1994 coup, I was just 4 years. At the age of 5, we have to leave the place because my father lost his job. So that made us transfer from Bakau to Brikama. So I grew up in Brikama. I was schooled there. And in fact, I think I am well known in Brikama than any other part of this country. And Modulamin Sow is actually a very hard-working young man growing up who is well known to be an information literate, a bookworm. I read thousands of books. I also worked twice as a librarian. So not only did I keep books in the library, but I read them. In the Gambia, back in high school, at Masrul Senior Secondary School I attended, I worked as a teacher librarian and also drama coordinator. So I was in charge of the library. It had helped me a lot because the library has shaped my, reading skills and my ability to think outside the box. And even when I traveled outside the Gambia too, I worked as a university librarian and teaching assistant at African Development University. So books are my friends, and then I fell in love with reading and writing at a very tender age. And due to that, I think it has helped me a lot.
Absolutely. Because that was going to be my next question. How did you come to literature? But now I know you've told us, books been part of your life. But can you recall some of the books that had the most impact on you when you were growing up? Can you remember them?
One of them is Great Expectations, written by Charles Dickens, because that was the book that sparked, that ignited that flame of literacy and literature in me. That was the book that compelled me to write Don't Judge the Book by the Cover at the age of 14, because I was sent out of the classroom by my literature teacher for not affording Great Expectations written by Charles Dickens. So I told myself I'm going to write a book. Because I sat inside the school garden, I was quietly there alone. I meditated.
What was it that sparked? What was it in the book? I know about Pip, obviously, and Miss Havisham and the like. I also like Great Expectations as well. What was it in the book that sparked whatever, the fire in you?
Thank you very much. It was just one thing, and that is Western literature. If the book was African literature, I would have been very much obliged and happier, in fact, to have, studied it. But I felt like we owe ourselves something. I owe my country something that I needed to give them, and that was Don't Judge the Book by the Cover, because if that book was written by a Gambian author, for example.
But doesn't matter. Does the nationality matter? Because one would have thought that literature is really borderless. Does the nationality matter? Does it matter whether European, Gambian, Western, this or that? It's just the quality of the work, don't you think?
So that's really important. All kinds of literature are important, no, wherever they come from, no matter what happened. But it's good to read ourselves first before we read others. We need to put that economic valorization in our languages. And our languages too are very fundamental because they determine our culture. And the kind of literature
when you say economic valorization, what does that mean? What do you mean by that?
I mean to give value to our languages, our tradition, and our culture. If, for example, Great Expectations was used in schools, in school curriculum as literature material, supplementary reading material, the same thing could apply to Nana Giri Jones's Magic Calabash, for example.
But now that is in the books. And,
yes.
and you have to be honest as well. We also did literature, but there was also African literature. We did Petals of Blood, Ngugi wa Thiong'o, and others. You know, Chinua Achebe is the Wole Soyinkas. So you had both, surely.
So they were both important, like I said earlier on. You know, their importance is such that I needed us to also consider our own literature. So this was my take at that tender age, because I needed to understand that I do not need to read a book that is talking about something else different and far away from my own country here.
So is it that you didn't have any access to African literature, as we call it, the Gambian literature? So most of the books that you had were really Western literature.
Yes, they were really Western. So the only access I had to African literature was when I read Women of Owu, written by, you know, our famous scholar and playwright, a Nigerian author and scholar, Femi Osofisant. He inspired me so much because when I read his work, I noticed so much. We see a lot of things together because I am also a playwright.
Okay,
I'm a poet and a novelist, so I write all the three genres of literature. So I felt that, in fact, during my final exam in high school, one of the literature questions asked us to describe the Apomu market in Nigeria. So not the black market here in Serekunda. So I read most of African literature and Western literature, but not Gambian. I was not inspired by any single Gambian author. So this was my take, and this was what motivated me to write Don't Judge the Book by the Cover at the age of 14, because I wanted to use that book as an advocacy tool for literacy, for education, for our oral tradition. Most of what I write is a written literature of our oral tradition, which is on the verge of extinction. You understand?
Yes. So this is quite interesting. You said you had not come across any Gambian literature in a book written by a Gambian. It was quite interesting. So you never heard of, for instance, Landry Peters?
At that age.
At that age, no?
At that age,
okay.
no.
Ibu Diba, so none of them, never heard of any of them. So that is it. So you were about 14, 15, you said, when you started this book, Don't Judge the Book by the Cover. What was the immediate spring, the immediate push, the throb, as it were, that led you to this book?
Yes, the immediate, can I say the motivation, the determination that led to my take on the book, as I explained earlier on, was just nationalism and determination, was to contribute positively to national development through books, you know, because I needed to create a new thing, to fill in a demography in our country. There was a huge gap when it comes to literacy. Education by then was, of course, affordable, but compared to poorer children from poorer families or poor families, they found education very expensive. And at that time, there was common entrance. So education was really something that was very much affordable. At the same time, it was worldwide. But now it is totally different. So at that time, I needed to give voice to people from poor communities and poor families who have the determination, who were determined enough to learn, but they could not afford the textbooks. I could recall when I was in Kabafita Lower Basic School and Upper Basic School too, even the textbooks we read, we don't have them. Only the teacher at some point had the textbooks. We had to borrow. And those textbooks too, you see them, you know, in the hands of the rich children, maybe their parents or they got it somewhere. So that forced us, that compelled us to read and struggle to work very, very hard. I could remember one of the passages I read when I was in primary 4, Abu lived in the town of Mansa Konko. I still sing that. And it resonates because that was one of the things that
It was
I really
a
liked.
poem, a song, what was it?
No, it was like, it was more of our English
Okay.
syllabus.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's a passage in that particular book. Yeah.
Really. So don't judge the book by the cover. Why that title? What is
Yes.
the message? Are you telling us something here? What are you telling us?
Don't judge the book by the cover resonates a lot of things. Because if you look at the title of the book, it's like a metaphor. At the same time, the title itself shows Fatu's hidden talent in the book. Someone who
Summarize the story for us. Just summarize the story for us, then you tell us about that. Who is
yes,
Fatu?
yes.
Summarize the story.
In summary, don't judge the book by the cover. It's simply telling us that we don't just need to develop that bad interest in reading, which I'll open in the book and read. I wanted people to use that adage to be able to open books and read them, to know what is in them. Because I was advocating for literacy. So one of the fastest way of coming up with a hashtag or something that will draw them and absorb them into the book was to say, don't judge the book by the cover. Because you know Gambians don't read. Even to buy a newspaper for $10 is also, they find it very difficult to do so. Okay, so I wanted them to have that interest, that incipient interest, you know, for reading and literature. That's why I thought it was very necessary to say, you know what, don't judge the book by the cover. You need to open and read the chapters, the pages, to know what the author is talking about. Because what reading and writing, you know, and cooking share in common is that they must both whet the appetite of their consumers. If you're cooking benachin, you need very rich ingredients to have that. If you're also writing a book, you need to, you know, work extra hard to make sure that you know the topic, your audience, and all those things. So writing and cooking, what they share in common is that they must both whet the appetite of their consumers, the readers.
But some people might say that when I look at this younger generation, they really hardly really talk. Whenever I see a group, everybody is reading their phone. Maybe it's a gossip, whatever it is. People are possibly reading today more than they are talking. Whenever I see a group. So maybe the idea is reading books. Or how can we take books to the phones, as it were? How do we respond to this view?
You are now entering my field of study. I didn't tell you I read library and information. So as an information literate, let me quickly hasten to clarify that we are moving very smoothly to the 21st century. And the 21st century, okay, as it ends very quickly, when we approach the 22nd century, we are going to see a U-turn when it comes to our literacy globally. What I'm trying to ascertain here is that whether you hold a PhD, you have a double doctorate degree, it has no use and value. It will be not important at all in the 22nd century if you cannot think. Employers will be looking for people.
Wouldn't one say that even right now?
Employers will be it has started. That's what I said. We are in the end of the 21st century. So when we get into that particular time, we will be looking for people who can think outside the box, people who can bring something on the table. So this is why that shift, that mental digital shift, I will call it, mental digital shift, is actually affecting everything when it comes to information. And this includes what you have just said. You said people read even on social media, on phones, yes, but what do they read?
Do you want to tell me that? Because by calling it mental digital, you're giving me the impression that, do you think that the digital has actually changed the mental? In what sense?
Yes, because technology has made us dull. It has made us live on the face of the earth like a flock of sheep. It has made us not to develop interest in reading anymore. It made us lazy. We are very lazy in terms of reading. Not everyone though, but most people feel a little bit
That's it. I
lazy
was about to ask
when
you,
it comes to
how
reading.
do you know? I mean, have you seen studies carried out, and even the studies that I've seen,
yes,
they've got a mixed picture. Some writers are saying one thing, other writers are saying something else. I am not sure if there is a consensus, yeah, on the effect of technology on the mind processes. I am not sure if there is any consensus on that. How would you respond to that?
Yes, the response is simple and straightforward. Technology has a very big impact on reading and literacy, because by then people were forced to sit for hours to sit for maybe for like a whole period trying to finish one particular book, try to know what the author is saying. Technology made it easier. When something is easier and cheaper, it led to ineffectiveness. And this is what is happening. People became a little bit ineffective.
But the book was new technology.
Yes.
The book is technology in
that
sense.
Indeed,
before then,
yeah, nobody
could read
like
that.
E-books.
Instructions.
That's what I'm saying.
So
it
going
is
back
easier.
to Gutenberg, going back even I think to the Chinese who invented printing. So that's all technology. So technology has been around. It's just that it's been evolving. It's been changing over time. So I just want to test your thesis. So you think that with this evolution of technology, there's also an evolution of mentality, if you like. That's a very interesting concept.
That was why I said mental digital shift. And I think now you see the mentality that I was trying to...
Yeah, I'm just trying to explore it.
So,
it's a very curious concept.
Especially Africa and Africans. In some other parts of the world is better because those people are making the best use of that particular technology we are talking about. In terms of literacy, you know, you see students using tablets, for instance, in classrooms. And that is adding value to what they are learning. You understand? But in Africa, it's different.
If they use it the right way,
in a positive way.
Because we know that there's a lot of abuse of technology as well. It's a bit like the knife, you know, the paradox of the knife. I can use it for constructive things, but again, I can use it to destroy.
There we go. So let's come to Gambia and Africa, for example, where we are trying to use this technology as a topic to see how it is helping us. You know, from post-independence, 1965 onwards, the system of education that's been in existence in our country mainly focused on academics, book knowledge, not vocational skill education. So we are being taught, or we teach our children, book knowledge from kindergarten to university. So when they finish, it is very difficult for them to be absorbed into the workforce. Why? They are being limited. In fact, that reminds me, sometimes you see someone go up to university or upon completion of high school, that is when you want to determine what you want to be in future or in life. That shows retardation.
Yes.
That shows something very wrong and negative in our education system. That shows our literacy level. That shows that, you know, at an early age, it is important, for example, if like in other countries, to have career and guideline centers in schools, closely work with the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education. We counsel our people when they're younger, much younger. I knew what I wanted to be at the age of 14, and I am one. I might not get to where I suppose, but I am no longer where I used to be. So because I knew what I wanted to be. But in the Gambia, this is something also that affects us as a nation. And I think it is fundamental for us to, as writers, to use our voice, to use our pen to talk about it. And this and many other reasons were what compelled me to write.
That's absolutely true. Yeah, we'll move further. But regarding, for instance, the education system here, let's try to make certain distinctions. For instance, during the First Republic, you also had vocational schools, didn't you? So perhaps the problem was with the social attitudes. There was not much respect, as it were, for that sort of thing. Everybody wanted to be in academia, you know, go to high school, do your maths, physics, whatever, history, instead of maybe going to learn about carpentry, wood, metal work, and that sort of plumbing, all sorts of things. So there was this social attitude, isn't it? So here, if we're going to tackle it, what government invests is one thing, and what are the social attitudes that might perhaps discourage potentially brilliant people from going in. So you have these different chunks, as it were, of issues to tackle here, isn't it?
Yes, I quite agree with you. This is what we call LAGGER. In Kenya, the lagger mentality, the mindsets of the people, mainly the youth who just want to sit at a particular junction and probably build castles in the air. And this doesn't just apply to Gambia, Africa as a continent. But here, in our case, for example, you know, we do not give that value to vocational skill education. Skillful people, whether they are carpenter, whatever they belong or they do, they don't have that respect. They don't have that value They are not people who are valuable or seen as people adding value in our economy and what they do. And that's why probably that negation has been there for, from post-independence. I think it's about time we begin to look at that. I've never been to any university, college, whatever, to learn how to write. It's a natural gift.
You learned from high school, you just learned.
Yes,
you didn't have to.
At that tender age, to now, I have just been doing my research, going to libraries, reading and all those things, but I've never learned I've never even taken a course in creative writing, for example. So this is also one of the skills that I'm talking about. So there are thousands of my likes out there watching me who can even do far more better than I am, because I have never seen myself as the best writer in this country or whatever. I said this on any platform I visited, and I am repeating it here, that I am not the best writer in this country. I don't see myself as one. I'm somebody very hardworking and determined. If I set my eye on something, I must make sure that I definitely get it. I'm just contributing positively to national development through writing. Any other person can do more. Maybe somebody down there in Koina even can do far more better than me. Maybe the person is not exposed. So that exposure is not there, that opportunity. So that's what I'm trying to create for the young people. And this was why I founded the Young Writers Association of the Gambia, to give voice to young people. I'm happy that the youth exuberance here is very huge and impressive. We have seen a new form of literature that has taken place, that has taken over our literature itself. That is spoken word poetry. Is a new form of art, that is taking over books in this country. People tend to quite listen to like poets nowadays more than even opening a book and reading it. And a good writer must be a very good researcher, not just a reader too. You must be able to research. I said this in the office of the Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Youth and Sports when I visited, because I was being asked to represent the Gambia at the African Union for the African Languages Week, where I was supposed to serve as a rapporteur. Not because I couldn't write my speech or I don't know what to do, but I still have to go to that department to say, well, look, this is my speech. This is what I want to say about the Gambia. What do you think I should add? Or do you have any figures and facts that I could include? Hardly you see you do that in this country. So in fact, their reports will be posted on Facebook for you to see that they represented the country. Maybe what they presented was not even accurate about our country. So I'm trying to put that positive energy in the mindsets of the young people to emulate what is right. Absolutely. Because a person without a voice is not a human being at all. A human being must have a say, that is to be able to be called a human being. Because every nation relies on the strength and productive versatility of our youth in championing socio-economic and political advancement, and the Gambia is not an exception. Because the Gambia, our country, have earned the respect and admiration in the world for its peace and hospitality. More so, our concern over...
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. I'm sure a lot of people will share your views. Obviously, how can anybody disagree with you? Perhaps the problem is, how do we go from point A to point B, where we want to go? This has always been the problem. So when I come back to your book, don't judge the book by the cover. Yes, the literal meaning, as it were. Don't just look at the book, go into it and read it. But perhaps the wider metaphorical one would be, perhaps do not generalize, do not assume too much. You know what I mean? Find out, get the facts first before you make up your mind, you take a decision, you have a view on anything. Perhaps that's the wider view, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, because like I said, the title of the book connotates a lot of things, and the wider view that I was looking at it at that perspective was to make sure that we stop, misleading and misjudging, misinterpreting things without trying to gather facts, which are trying to go deep into what happened to know exactly what matters. And that includes the title of the book, because this is a 10,000 word book, 10,000 words. You could imagine the amount of time and energy that was spent to summarize 10,000 words in just less than 50 pages. The book is about 46 pages. So that shows that I'm very good at summary, because I realized, like I said earlier on, that people are a little bit dull, that interest, that appetite to read is no longer there.
Yes, and
so
you've said that
yes,
it took you 6 months.
Yes.
Tell me about your own writing process. Do you write every day? Is it in the morning or in the evening or late at night? Sometimes you find yourself, you have to force the words to come. Other times it's as if you're receiving dictation from something somewhere. How is your own writing process like?
What a fundamental question. As if you have even noticed that it's a dictation. Oh, you must be a soothsayer. Thank you very much. In fact, it was a divine inspiration that led me to write Don't Judge the Book by the Cover. When I say divine, you know what I'm talking about.
Yes, but I will also try to ask you, how do you know if that was divine?
I knew it because God communicates to people in a different way. If you keep doing something repeatedly, you keep trying, at some point, you have to fail. You fail woefully in order to succeed. Because a successful person is the one who can lay a firm foundation with the bricks that others throw onto him or her. I fail woefully in life. I fail a lot. But I noticed this was a divine inspiration to write when I dreamed that I wrote a book. The same dream occurred 3 times. Then that was not just a dream. That was a message. That was an inspiration.
So what was it? You dreamt the title or you dreamt the content?
At first.
What was the content of your dream?
Yes, that's what I'm explaining. At first, I just dreamed that I wrote a book. I presented it to people. It was just around the river bank and they were crying. I could not even remember the title. That was the first dream. The second dream, okay, I could remember the title of the book, Don't Judge the Book by the Cover. And the third time, the same thing. Then I had to make sure that that was the title of my book. So my writings, when they are going very well, they are whisperings from the Spirit. They are whispers from the Spirit. And that is what I have to work very hard to transcribe in a book.
In what language do these whispers come?
In any language.
What language do they speak?
They speak all languages.
But you can speak all languages, surely. The number of languages
I'm fluent in 3 to 4 languages.
Well, that's it, it's finite. Your number is finite, their number is infinite. So in which of the 4 languages did the Spirit speak to you?
Well, in any of the languages. Some things are so personal to be disclosed on a national TV station. So personal.
Okay, all right. It is very interesting. So now let's move on. Books. Do you think that when you writers write these books, how do you influence people? Do you think that you influence people's habits? Do you think that writers have that effect on people? It's a question.
So it's a question. Writers really do have power. The power of communication. They have people to talk to, their audience or readers. They have a way of saying it, language. Whether they write it in Arabic, Manjaco is language. And they have something to say, a topic to write. Whether they write about teenage pregnancy, education, that is their topic. So now coming over to your question, we have that power of communication to effect change. Because writers write for few reasons, like to advocate for change. Maybe they see something is wrong, they want to change that. Maybe they write to entertain. Maybe they just write to create something new. They write to educate people. So they might have their reasons for writing because we are not the same. But all in all, these are some of the things that all writers must have to do in order for them to determine what they are going to write and who they are talking to. Like for people like me, I don't just jump and write. I make a lot of research, spend a lot of time and energy going from one library, one person to another. Sometimes I have to go to griots, the old women and men, sit down and listen to what they have to say. All that is part of my research.
Absolutely.
Yes,
but so let's make another distinction here. Of course, one understands the historian, what the historian writes, the scientist, all these different forms of writing that apparently are based on facts. Then if we can make the distinction between that sort of writing and the other bit, the imaginative one. So for the first one, the reference, yes, of course, I need reference books. I need to know. And one understands when I open a book what I go there for. But when I open a novel, that's a different world. What do I go there for? what does a novel, how does a novel teach? You know, I understand the history, the geography and all of that, but this one is a slightly different activity. How does a novel teach? You guys, you people, you write novels. How does a novel teach?
Thank you very much. You have to belong to our world to understand.
So only a novelist can understand?
No. I will explain in detail.
All right.
To understand how we think, who we are, and what compels us to do what we do. Okay? If you open a novel, the first page is just a kind of prelude. When I say prelude, is you are just trying to understand what is happening. The second chapter of any book is what determines who the author is, whether he or she is a good or bad writer. The second chapter determines that.
How?
How? Because the first chapter is just a kind of introduction, trying to gather things together to tell us what really you are saying. But the second chapter is where it is said, to whom it is meant for. And good writers create suspense. In the words of Bessie Head, the famous South African author, she said, they asked her, why do you write? She said, because I possess power to take the whole of mankind up there in the sky. That is why I write. Do you know writers have rituals? They have power. They do their own rituals. I have my own ritual before I write. I must be in that state of madness to be totally out of this planet in order to write. Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie too, she sometimes she has to light red candles. She will fall into a brief trance.
Yeah,
she will recite Igbo chants just to write. Mine is different. Sometimes I listen to music. Sometimes I read the Holy Quran. Sometimes I have to drink something that makes me mad, not alcohol. I don't smoke cigarettes. I don't drink alcohol. I don't even eat pepper. It might be energy drink, just something that possesses me to be in that state of confinement where I would be able to listen to and communicate to these spirits to be able to write.
Yes, of course I understand that every writer, every individual, they have their own tics, as it were. They've got their own habits and own rituals around the writing bit. That is one part, but what I write about, what I write, the content of my writing, that's also quite another. So here one is just simply exploring the idea that writers can change history, can change society.
So,
you know, that sort of thing. Because you also have a good body of literature of writers saying that actually that doesn't happen at all. Human beings are not like that. What changes society over time is that you just have these unpredictable social movements. You know what I mean? So social movements create books or authors, what they value, rather than the other way around. So how do you respond to that?
I like that English. It's very interesting. I like the word social movements.
Yes.
Very, very interesting, because that reminds me of the theory of evolution. When they had to teach the author exactly what to say, what to write, the way to say it for whom, and that is the theory we are experiencing now. So, like when it comes to imagery, creative writing is totally different from what you're explaining, because sometimes writers have to sit and imagine something that doesn't even happen at all, completely.
Oh, absolutely. But so this is the thing, isn't it? Even the category writers, it's a bit problematic. It sort of gives the impression that we are talking about a unitary, simple thing, but you have so many different kinds of writing, so many different types of writers, different mannerisms of writing. So even the term just, this is how writers think, or this is what writers do, that in itself is problematic. Yeah. Because always some will be doing it, others wouldn't. So this is, even the category is really, really problematic. This is really what I want to confront here. So when you say writers, really what you're saying is, Mamadou Lamin, H. Amul Saf Sow. Essentially, yes. That's the writer
as a creative writer.
Absolutely.
I'm not a medical writer.
Absolutely, yes.
I don't write that.
Yes.
You know, this is what I keep telling people, especially young people. I'm not talking to the elders because their generation is gone. I mean those that are coming up. Those that are coming up.
What you write, if it is true,
yes,
then you can talk to anybody. It's for everybody.
What I mean is, we need to look at ourselves, what we can do, what we love doing. We do it without having to imitate anybody. I do not write because I saw Nana Agri Johnson writing, no. I write because that is my calling. That is my destiny. That is what I must do. But I do not have to try other types of writing too, because that is not my area. But I want this country to have medical writers, sport writers. These are all writers, but I am a creative writer. Yes. That is who I am. And when I say creative writer, you know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely. This is really what I want to explore. Literature and what it does for society, isn't it? It is in this context that we will really enjoy, for instance, what you do. So, for you, the book, the imaginative book, the creative book, what is it for? Is it to tell me the truth, or is it to help me to live a moral life, or is it to console me? What is it for, or a combination of all? What is the imaginative book for in that sense? Because from what I've been hearing, what you were saying about the Gambia, what we do, what we don't do, what we need to understand, it seems as if for you, the book, even the creative book, is a manual. Is that how you see what you do? It is a manual that I can use and follow, and it will improve my life. Is that how you see it?
Thank you very much. That is just one aspect of how I see things. To me, creative writing is a moral way of showing what is morally right and what is not.
What about the aesthetics? Because normally with this imaginative stuff, notions like aesthetics, a certain kind of beauty, it is a kind of edification, I suppose. What about these elements of aesthetics? You're making literature sound like a worker.
We command literature, don't worry. That's the writer in me. Yes.
So how about these other elements? Because it seems to me you're making literature do something like what history should do. What do you think?
Yes, that is one aspect of what we do as writers. We are very good at looking at what is wrong. We have that emotions. You'll be so surprised to see the kinds of emotions we have as authors. We might not easily get offended and upset when things happen, but the moment we sit quietly or we are sad, something happened. That is when what had already took place 10 years ago, we want to put it, because it reflects, it resonates with our emotion, and we want to let it out. But letting it out, we are also being very mindful of what we say, because people are going to read it. So we put it in a different language to make sure that it is a moral lesson, so that our readers will get to understand that this was totally wrong, but this was how it ended. So they could learn a moral lesson from what had happened. Another thing also could be about advocating for something. Maybe there was a dictator, and the dictator did that and that is not correct. Now you are trying to now use creative writing, your own imagery, imagination, to write something that is going to teach people to learn about what had happened, even without having to mention names. A very good book could be The Dictator and the Heretic by Dr. Mamadou Sallah, our own Gambian author and brother. In his book, he said, the zombies used to feed during the secrecy of the night, but now they chew the babies in broad daylight. That interpretation is talking about us Gambians here. When Yahya Jammeh left, everybody became journalists. Everybody became who they are not. In fact, they divided the country into two. Facebook, we have State House on Facebook, we have State House in Banjul. So that's what he's trying to interpret. The zombies used to feed during the secrecy of the night, but now they chew the babies in broad daylight. Everybody grew wings. So as authors, I could easily relate to what he says, because I write. I can easily understand what another person says, especially someone who writes, because we seem to like live in different worlds. We seem to share so many things in common. Just like in the words of our late professor, Professor Rafina Philip Almeida. She wrote Kirio and other proverbs. The book is still available at Timbuktu Bookshop. She said the okra plant does not grow taller than its gardener. Yeah, I read Gambian books too.
All right, good.
Just like at the time I started writing, I didn't read any Gambian book, but that doesn't mean I did not read Gambian works. I read a lot of Gambian books. Of course, as a librarian, I don't just have to take books and keep them in the library. I must read those books to know what they're talking about. And that also reminds me. I noticed that we have 3 categories of readers in schools. I don't know if this applies to our country, but in schools, we have 3 categories of readers. My first category when I was a librarian, I discovered were students who read for exams. When exam is approaching, my library will be filled to capacity. I have to run helter and skelter to get enough seats for them to, have space to read, because they read for exams. After examination, I don't even see them again. So they will run. And the second category are those who read for probably pleasure or fun. Maybe exam is approaching, maybe something is happening, okay? They see Fatu going to the library, they also want to join Fatu. Fatu Harma, and they will collect their bags and go. So those are people who read for leisure and for fun. And the last category are those who read for wisdom. Those students from poor family backgrounds like mine who are determined to make change, who are very serious in their education. Sometimes I even feel shy to even tell them, you know what, I want to close. I feel shy to make sure that I close the library. I have to sit and wait until they're done, because they will sit since morning, they will be reading, and I love that. To motivate them, I had to create the library prize, library users. So that also motivated a lot of them. I had to convince the authority to make sure that we have a library period, whereas whether you are from the science field, the commerce field, or even art field of study, when you come to the library, I must explain a particular book to them. And this really gave the students that hope, that love for books that they looked for. Sometimes they even see me in the streets, they will be like, you were our librarian. I might not even recognize them. But I impacted that change on them, and they developed that love for reading.
Yes, yes, and I'm sure your 3 categories, I'm sure they are not quite mutually exclusive.
Yes,
you will have somebody who wants to read, as you call it, for wisdom, and will also read to pass exams.
Indeed,
you have all of these things happening. So this is very interesting. My next topic was going to be literature, the writing, and politics. But it seems you are really a political writer. You want to change things. You want to influence people. You want to do all of these things. But again, don't you see that approach, engagé, I think they used to call it during the colonial period, that engagé literature. Because to me, the creative process itself, sometimes it will lead me to unscheduled stops. It will lead me to areas that I had never really planned. That discovery, one discovers as one writes. Whereas when I take engagé, it's like a program. I must know the beginning, the middle, and the end, possibly before I do it. Where is the creativity, the imaginative surprise in an engagé literature?
Thank you very much. I think that is why you describe me as a political writer. But you tend to forget that even Wole Soyinka was imprisoned.
Oh, absolutely.
For several years.
Yes,
but that doesn't mean he's a political writer.
No, but let's get this out of the way. Soyinka was a political activist. But when you read his literature, yes, The Lion and the Jewel and others, the politics is not direct. All of that is in the background humming, because the actors, the characters, they are necessarily political. Man is a political animal in that sense. But politics as such is not foregrounded in his work, even though one can possibly read it politically.
Did you read my work?
Not yet.
You see? You should read my work.
No, but still we explore
You will not
concepts.
come across any element of politics in my work. I don't write those
No, what
things.
I mean is the political is wanting to change the nature of power, how, especially in relation,
we have voice.
that's it, in relation to ordinary people, voices, that's it. So it is political in a sense.
Indeed.
Surely.
Indeed.
And you want to change society.
We play a very pivotal role when it comes to effecting changes, whether it's political changes or whether it's social, it doesn't matter what form of change. But as writers, we must, and we are compelled to doing that, because that's part of our, our work, to make sure that we let people know what is happening. But that at some point, that doesn't mean that, we are like more of political writers. We are people who are very judgmental. And writers are very eloquent people. You hardly see speak. They don't talk much because what they want to say is what they write. So each and every writer is very fluent and eloquent, but they put their public speaking skills and everything in words.
Absolutely. But this is the key.
Yes.
How effective have you been? I mean, early on, you've said it already. Look at Africa, for instance. People have been writing for God knows how long. And yet, when you look at our political situation, it doesn't seem to be improving. So this is what I want to explore. The relationship between what people write, the writers, what they do, and how it affects society, habits, movements, even our institutions. What is the relationship? Because by understanding it, that's when we can genuinely harness writing.
Yes. The short answer is straightforward. What most of us and these people write that doesn't seem to improve the political trend you have just spoken about is that the people in power, those in higher portfolios, they don't tend to read what we write. That is one. Two, they don't like it. They don't like what we write. You are either being pursued, okay? They will send you to exile. You will be persecuted. You will be imprisoned. You will be jailed. So these are some of the things that preempt us as writers from ringing that bell, from sending that appropriate message, from effecting that political change.
Okay, but
across the continent.
Yes, that is very true, but I will push you a bit further. Yes, generally, our leaders do not read, one understands that. But let's take Guinea, for instance. Recently, Alpha Condé, when he wanted to change things, for his own benefit, it seems to many. Condé, university professor. I mean, Condé has read so many books. You know what I mean? Condé, you will definitely say that Condé read. But what is it that even though having read all of these books, yet it's not having much impact on how I do my politics and what I do, what is happening around? We are all really bemoaning the situation right now. Writers have been writing for a long time, but people are just so disappointed that we haven't seen much change. What is the heart of the problem here? One wonders.
Well,
I mean, you writers, what is it that you're not doing right?
It's not about writers not playing their role or there is something they are not doing right. We have people who are professors. We have doctors here and there, but look, their doctorate degree is useless compared to a child in primary school. What he or she does, they cannot even do. So it's not about the degrees and the number of books you have read. That is not the case. It's about humanity and solidarity that matters in all human beings. It's about conscience. It's about being able to effect change in a positive way. And that is what we are not seeing in our leaders. It's about being visionary. If they were like Nelson Mandela, who was not forced, to give power, but he actually surrendered in a very positive way, things will be different. And talking of the case of Alpha Condé too, he read, I know Alpha is a professor. But like I said, you can be professor of whatsoever, but the wisdom is not there. The conscience is not there. Power is just something that everybody wants. Like I said in my book, The Throne of the Ghost is a play. I said leaders are chosen by God, not people. For people can only nominate, vote for, or elect a leader, but they don't choose a leader.
Now, that in a sense is true. I mean, even if one applies, if you like, Aristotle's ideas of causes. Of course, God is the first cause. But we should be very, very careful here because politicians tend to use that you know, as a mask, as it were, as a weapon. They weaponize it, you know, to try to suggest all sorts of things. For us to think effectively in a political way, we must agree that the immediate, proximate cause, yeah, of human phenomena is really what human beings do. We form our political parties, we go and vote for them. That is really the proximate cause of all human phenomena. When it comes to God, the first cause, that is everything under this earth. that doesn't explain much. One is only making this point because we have heard, we do hear it during elections time around the world, oh, you know, God put him there, so what does that mean? Therefore, you better vote for him because God put him there. That is a flawed argument. I hope you will also agree. That's a completely flawed argument. Wouldn't you say? So
yes.
We can be careful about how much God placed in our politics, so that we wouldn't take away agency from ourselves.
It's not just
that is
politics.
very dangerous.
It's not just politics. God plays a pivotal role in everything.
Everybody's lives. That's very true. One is just trying here
just
not to make a flawed argument.
In Africa, especially Gambia, when we say our leaders are chosen by God, that doesn't mean they have to grow wings. That doesn't mean we are not saying people do not vote for them to be in that power.
But it tends to
that
be
does
like
not mean
that.
we do not say that they don't form political parties. But it was destined that they are going to be who they're supposed to be,
but
even if they have been to prison.
How do you know
it was
that
written,
they were destined?
It was written from creation.
But how do you know?
It was written on their foreheads that they will be what they're supposed
Can
to
anybody read
be.
it? You see, here, what is making certain...
Well, I'm an author and I did not even go to any college or university to be able to write these books, to be able to win this award for Gambia, because it was destined.
You are in good company. Shakespeare never went to university. Don't worry about that. That's not the point. A lot of great writers really never went to university. But this is the whole issue, isn't it?
You know, there has been a calamitous decline.
Calamitous decline in
the consumption of our literature in the Western world. If you notice during, some time ago, to now, there is a kind of a shift. By then, a lot of our literature, books were injected there. But now things change a little bit. That's mainly because most of us Africans tend to adopt a culture that's not ours. Even our writers. I read a lot of books, and some of these books I seem to see a culture that's not ours. Maybe an author who resides in the United States, for example, when he or she writes, is different from somebody from Gambia who has never been there. You see the similarities, you see the culture, you see that diction. It's so reflexive in their work.
Absolutely. This is culture debate. We are not even going to go there. This sort of partitioning of cultures, as it were, this balkanization of cultures and all the rest of it is very interesting. But for me, the point was really to explore books and people. It seems that what I've got mostly from literature, from you people, is that God, life is really awful, and there's nothing you can do about it. Just accept.
I'm not going to
this
accept
idea that literature can do something, it can change. Imagine I have this habit. I'm not sure the literature can change my habit.
A scholar, in fact, predicted. In Islam, what I'm coming to say is contradictory to Islam. But there was a prediction that if God has an employment, he will have been declared an author. Why? Because he has his own pen, kalam, and he writes. He dictates. Whatever he says happen, it will happen, because he is kun fayakun. Now let's come back to your argument, because I can see you are very energetic in terms of debate. Huh? I like that energy. Bring it forward. Let's debate. Let's debate in a positive way.
It's a conversation.
It's a conversation.
Yeah.
So we are conversing on a very sensitive issue when it comes to morality, when it comes to religion, because each and every sensitive topic we mention is inclusive. We are revolving around everything. And that is why, as an author, as somebody who writes for people to read, I am very mindful of what I write, because my religion, does not accept some things. If you read the Throne of the Ghost, for instance,
that's it.
I buried something there.
Yes.
What I put there was a charity, was my cause, was my take. Okay? And that is the kalimatu shahada in Islam. That is to say, ashadu an la ilaha. That is to testify that there is no God but Allah. And that the messenger of Allah, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and all messengers are all messengers of God. I said that in English. So as you open my book, The Throne of the Ghost, you say that in English. It is as if you are now testifying that there is no God but Allah. So writers have a way of trying to reach out to people. Me, I like to write the kind of story I like to read.
Thank you. I love that.
That is the kind of writer I am. I write what I would love to read. It doesn't matter who doesn't like it. But that. if you open my books, even the first page, you read just first chapter, you realize I am very good at using metaphor and suspense. I can put you in suspense. You'll be so curious to know what the next chapter is saying. I am very good at summary, like summarizing. I don't need to write a book of 1 million pages. People don't have time to read that.
Towards the end. I heard Hausum Cisse's summary of your book.
Exactly.
of your book, and he said something like that. Thank you very much. We've come to the very end. But just last quickly, when I read your The Throne of the Ghost, when I look at the title, it reminded me of The Ghost on the Throne by James Rome. Was it an echo? Was it a conscious echo of that book?
No.
Okay. Thank you very much. That was a fantastic conversation there. Mamadou Lamin H. Amulsa. So I really enjoyed our conversation there. Until the next time, join me on The Viewpoint. I'm Mamadou Mbouch. Bye-bye.